Lovely to see you all, and lots of people in the room who I recognise from previous events. So I'm glad we haven't put you off and you've come back again. It's lovely to see you. And I've already got technical issues with this thing determined to go forward. Let's try it again now. Anyway, hello, my name's David Brownlee. I run a little consultancy called DataCulture Change, and this is what DataCulture Change is here to do. Help cultural organisations use data to become more equitable, sustainable, and effective. I'm not going to give you a huge advert. We have a website. If you're interested, do go there. At some point, there will be the publication we're launching today on there as well, but all the loads of research we've done over the last 10 years or so is on there too. In terms of context of the conversation today, we're talking about data. I am not a data person, I'm a culture person. My degree is in drama, not data science. My background is with all of these organisations and more. I started in sales and marketing before kind of getting into local government, then Arts Council, then UK Theatre and other things. So I'm coming at this very much from the perspective of a cultural person who cares about data. And somebody who started his career back in the days of Margaret Thatcher, when we as a sector were really, really data poor. For individual organisations, there was very little data being collected. Across the nation, we knew very little about people who were and who weren't engaging with arts and culture. And over my overly long career, I've seen things change significantly. And that is kind of the context for this presentation today. Bit dry, bit boring, but really important in terms of setting context. Back early 2000s, when we had the Blair government, there were these things called public service agreements. Does anybody remember public service agreements? No, okay. They were the way that the government was trying to get different departments and their non-departmental public bodies to deliver change. So in the days when government was giving more money, they said, we'll give you more money, but we want to see change from that. So Arts Council and DCMS go off to government and say, yeah, we want some more money, please. And they said, well, what are you going to change? What can you do that's measurable that we can point to in terms of success? And they said, well, why don't we look at engagement with the arts? Why don't we look at participation and attendance at arts events? And the response was, great, okay, what's your baseline? What proportion of the public currently engage with arts and culture? Stony silence. There was no clue within the sector at all around where we were and who was engaging, what proportion of the population, which led to 2005, the first Taking Part survey, which was the first really high quality, gold standard national survey of who was taking part in arts, culture, heritage, all sorts, the whole kind of DCMS area. It was brilliant. It ran for 15 years and it told us loads of things around about cultural engagement. And it exploded a load of myths. Why are the reasons why people don't engage with arts and culture? Is it all about money? That's about fifth down the list. Far more are about relevance. What are the big issues in terms of why people don't engage? Well, the two that come out more than anything else when you look at different factors, it's level of education and it's social class. Those two things trump everything else. We got all of that from Taking Part, and all of the kind of arts-based segmentation, audience spectrum, all of that came from Taking Part data as well. So huge leaps forward in terms of what the sector is doing. But crucially, very limited local insight. The sample was big, it's about 40,000 a year, but that's on a face-to-face basis. But when you get down to a local authority level, it's kind of meaningless. The margins of error are so huge. Leaping us ahead slightly, come on. We're going to go old school. Leaping ahead slightly, Taking Part came to an end in 2020. It was really expensive because it was face-to-face. There was a new approach called the participation survey That's a push to web survey. Things have got a lot better in terms of managing web surveys now. They are a lot better in terms of getting a good and representative sample. They also changed the questions at this point as well. All of this was planned, and then there was COVID, which is really frustrating because in terms of being able to look at the data pre and post COVID, you're not comparing apples with apples, which is really frustrating, but that's where we were. But it's pushed to web, so big sample every year, and then Arts Council paid to boost the sample massively up to 175,000 responses back in 2023-24. And just to kind of finish the story here, the participation survey is gone and is now being replaced by the community and engagement survey, but it's exactly the same methodology, it's exactly the same questions, so we will be able to look at longitudinal analysis across there. Ben mentioned that we did a kind of preview session with another group online a couple of months ago, and there was this brilliant question around, well, 23-24, isn't that going to be a bit of a weird year? Aren't we coming out of COVID? Can we really be looking at this in a way that it tells us about the world as it is now? Which was a great question. I didn't have the answer, so I went away and I checked. And when we look at the data published since then, yes, absolutely. By 23-24, we were effectively out of COVID in terms of engagement with arts and culture. And what we've seen for the most recent years on a national level is very similar to this. So you can treat this with confidence. We're going to have time for questions at the end. But if there are any questions, if anything as I go through is not clear, please do stick up a hand and I'll come to you. We all okay so far? Cool. So, it's been wonderful working here in Greater Lincolnshire. You've done some great stuff with data. As we heard about decoding a couple of years ago, I think you're the first combined authority area that has gone into that kind of degree of data about what's already out there and looking at it from a cultural perspective. I think you're the first combined authority area to do this with this data as well. So you are pioneering. We came into this project with a load of objectives. That robust evidence base is clearly really key within this and disseminating that within the cultural sector. We want to know what's happening across Greater Lincolnshire, different districts, different unitaries. Are there similarities? Are there differences? How are you doing, Greater Lincolnshire versus England as a whole? The brilliant thing, again, in terms of this massive sample that we've got, we can drill down into demographics. So as we go through the presentation today, you'll see that we're looking at age, sex, disability, all sorts of things within this as well. Why do all of this? Well, hopefully it'll be a really helpful planning tool. As a nation, we don't have a lot of money at the moment. Making sure that every pound that is invested wisely, this is a great evidence base to have. And that can then fuel into future strategy for individual organisations, local authorities, and funders across Greater Lincolnshire. Put slightly differently, we had some questions that we wanted to answer. How does engagement in Greater Lincolnshire compare with England? Does great cultural engagement vary across districts? Which art forms show relatively strong or weak engagement locally? How do patterns change based on demographics? What's happening in terms of forms of cultural engagement, geographical distribution? And the last one, which we picked up on another event not that long ago, when we're looking at self-reported well-being, are we seeing some correlations between engagement with arts and culture? If we don't answer all these questions in the next 45 minutes, hopefully the report will give you those answers. But that's what we aimed to achieve. I think we have done. There's the report. My first recommendation, please take this seriously. It's massive. It's over 120 pages long. When we started on this, I don't think I expected it to be quite such a beast, but it is absolutely huge. So please, when you get it, don't just press the print button because, yeah, you will destroy the planet. It is, that gives you an idea of all the stuff that's in it. Half of the document, a bit more than half of the document, goes through in detail around different art forms and participation and attendance. That's all the way up until about 14. I'm not going to talk much about it today, but we have got libraries and heritage within the report as well. And then the remaining chunk of the document, it goes through local authority by local authority, all of the kind of art forms and heritage and libraries as well. So it's a big, big document. Don't read it all, but you'll find bits in it that you find interesting, whether you want to drill down by art form or drill down by place. Key thing, this isn't our data. This is DCMS data. This is their approach to doing this. This is data that is publicly available. They produce their own summaries, but also, and I think we've got lots of academics in the room, we have some local authorities too, you can sign up to the UK Data Service, and if you know what you're doing, you can download anonymously every survey return and do your own analysis on this. And that's all that we've done. We've downloaded the whole of it, and we've just looked at it in a slightly different way. But what we can't do is change the questions. These are the CMS questions, and that's the data that we're working with. So two key questions. In the last 12 months, which of the following events have you attended in person in England? And then we have this long list. And each of those, you get a tick box. Back in the day, when we had taken part, that broke down theatre and musicals and opera. We have this catch-all of a theatre, play, drama, musical, pantomime, ballet, or opera. That's all bulked together. We can't split it up, which if I was running an opera company, I wouldn't be happy about, but it is what it is. It used to be that there was this really tight definition of festivals and carnivals. Now it's really loose. An arts festival or carnival, which could be a food event. You see, we've even got fashion shows in here, and an in-person esports contest. That's an arts event too, apparently. So you tick through all of these boxes or not, and that gives us an idea of who is and who isn't engaging in culture. Oh no. So our first bit of data. So this is whoever ticked yes to any one of that list previously. So we'll see there's a grey line at the top. That's 78%, and that's the average across England. So, and this is adults, so it's 16-year-olds upwards. We might get onto children at some point, but this is not about children. This is about adult engagement. You've then got a dark green line underneath it, and you'll see that's at 72%, and that is the average for Greater Lincolnshire. So English average, 78%, Greater Lincolnshire, 72%, 6% down. But then you'll see we've ranked it in order of local authorities, and we're seeing South Kesteven, North Kesteven actually above not only the Greater Lincolnshire average, but above the English average as well. And you'll see we've got these little bars as well. Those are our confidence intervals. That's our margin of error. So statistically, we're 90% sure that it falls within those two bars. And you can see that when we've got a bigger sample, so the whole of Lincolnshire put together, those two bars become very close together because we're a lot more confident because the sample's bigger. That makes sense? Cool. Any surprises there? No. This is not new data. This has been published previously. You could have got this from a DCMS report a couple of years ago. We're going to dive a lot deeper, but this is a good starting point. I said demographics. We're going to start by looking at age, and there are a series of charts like this. I'm not going through the whole report. You will be pleased to know. I'm just giving you some highlights and some ways of looking at things for different sections. But this is obviously half a chart, and I'm showing you the English bit of it first of all. And this is that metric, but broken down by age band. You see from 16 to 19 all the way to 85 and over. And you can see down at the bottom the total 78. That's the figure we saw before, 78% engaging. And I find this fascinating. I think it's quite a beautiful curve, actually. And you see how it remains remarkably constant all the way up until kind of mid-50s and then goes down. If you'd seen a chart like this for taking part, it looks really different. And that's because for some reason or another, film wasn't considered to be art. I think it's because it fell outside of Arts Council England's brief, but film was excluded. And when you exclude film from this, it looks completely different. That's where we should be. So on the green, on the right-hand side of the screen, we've got the Greater Lincolnshire figures, but not as beautifully refined a curve. It's a bit lumpy, and we're seeing that actually the highest levels of engagement are 45 to 49-year-olds, with the caveat of those margins of error alongside there as well. We're seeing a big fall off at the end, and that 80 to 84-year-olds, less than half of them are engaging with arts and culture. So this is the same approach in terms of showing those age-related breakdowns, but this time just for cinema. And you can see why that having cinema in or not having cinema in completely skews the figures, because cinema is so young people orientated. Top at 72% for 16 to 19-year-olds. By the time you've got to over 80s across England, 1 in 5. And again, you're seeing similar trends in Greater Lincolnshire, but your biggest level of engagement is the 45 to 49-year-olds. And even at that point, you're ahead of the English figure. So there's something going on there in terms of kind of middle-age engagement that is perhaps quite interesting. So this is, double click, theatre, and this is when you take out film, this is far more what you expect to see in terms of most art forms. You get this kind of middle-age spread. Highest there in England, 47% age 60 to 64. You don't hit peak theatre until your 60s. And you can see you're down at about a third at the top and down to a quarter towards the bottom. So again, this isn't particularly new stuff. It's not presented that well and that often. But in terms of thinking about it, if you're trying to reach a younger audience, film's a great way of doing it. If you're putting on theatre, bear in mind the fact that the most popular age group in terms of theatre is the kind of over 60s. Looking at sex, This is where we get the kind of biggest difference between the sexes in terms of engagement. This is craft participation. And in terms of participating in craft, nationally across England, 28% of women, but only 13% of men. And in terms of Greater Lincolnshire, you're seeing very similar proportions. Actually, though, craft participation higher in Greater Lincolnshire than it is nationally. Worth remembering, we're not going to see that very often. But craft is something that is really big within Lincolnshire, we can see. Photography, again, one of the takeaways from today, I hope, will be photography really interesting. Photography, we see very, very little difference across all demographics. Photography gets to the same proportions of people across most things. Here we're seeing it across sex, but you'll also see it across ethnicity. You'll also see it across age as well. Photography is something that isn't for everyone, but it is universal in terms of levels of engagement. So big differences there depending on what the art form is. Another one to really flag, across all art forms, except for kind of craft participation and craft exhibitions, we're seeing that Greater Lincolnshire is falling below the English average. The area where it's just about biggest is around exhibition attendance. Really, really big gaps for exhibition attendance. Here we're looking at it in terms of ethnicity, but you'll see it across all the different characteristics. Here, 28% of people who identify as white in England attended an exhibition, but that's just 19% in Greater Lincolnshire. And those from a global majority, 24% in England, just 17% in Greater Lincolnshire. Worth reading that section. There is one place in Greater Lincolnshire that bucks the trend. District or unitary, any ideas? It's worth having a look. It's the City of Lincoln. City of Lincoln is way above everywhere else. This is an interesting one in terms of if you're thinking about long-term development of cultural provision across Greater Lincolnshire, what is it about your gallery provision at the moment that is not attracting people in the way that you would expect? Yeah, I've spoiler on my own presentation. Photography participation, hardly any difference, no statistically significantly difference across ethnicity. Theatre attendance, and this is disabled and non-disabled people. Big difference nationally and in Greater Lincolnshire. If you are disabled, you are less likely to be attending theatre. Does that mean you're less likely to want to attend theatre? Or is it because you've got barriers to doing it? Craft participation, I think this helps to answer that last question. When we look at craft participation by disabled and non-disabled adults, actually more people, well, a higher proportion of disabled people are participating in crafts in England and in Greater Lincolnshire than non-disabled people. So if you are disabled, that does not mean you are less interested in arts and culture, because actually in terms of doing stuff around craft, you're doing more. Another one. So you've got these charts for everything as you go through, and I'm just pulling out one example at a time because otherwise we'd be here all night. Another way that we're dicing the data is households with and without children. Topic of personal interest for me, personal and professional interests, having set up the Family Arts campaign, and the reason why we set up the Family Arts campaign, one of the key things around engagement as an adult is what you've done with your family as a child. Absolute fundamental. So the more we can get engagement by families, the more likely we are to have a more culturally engaged, healthier, happier population in years to come. And in terms of visual arts, you're more likely to participate in visual arts if you've got children at home. Maybe that's not a surprise. Maybe that's a lot of painting on the kitchen table as a family. But then weirdly, in terms of craft participation, it's the other way around. You're less likely to participate in crafts if you've got children in your household. I don't understand that. I think it might be because of age. Oh, what was that? Yeah, coping strategies make a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. There might be an age thing going on here in terms of cross participation, that it's more grandparents than it is parents. But yeah. So back to exhibition attendance. Both in England and in Greater Lincolnshire, you are way more likely to have attended an exhibition if you identify as LGBTQIA+. Way more. 27 versus 43, 19 versus 31. And in terms of LGBTQIA+ engagement broadly across arts and culture, just about everywhere it's way higher. That I think is the biggest gap you'll see in the report. But virtually everywhere else, you'll see the same thing. Yes, I think that's saying the same thing. Visual arts participation, double, virtually on the national basis, more than double in the Greater Lincolnshire. I think that was the slide I was expecting next. This is the one area where there is very little difference between LGBTQIA+ and heterosexual is in craft exhibition. That's the only place where we're not seeing big differences. And key within this, we've got the national picture, we've got the Lincolnshire picture. The Greater Lincolnshire picture really reflects the national picture. You are not weird, you are normal. Right, this was the point where I needed to put glasses on. Now, some of you have heard lots about the ONS well-being measures, because we looked in detail at them. And at the time, I didn't realize they were being asked within the participation survey. And that means we can then cut the data in the participation survey against those measures. And what we've got here is theatre attendance. And I'm going to read this out so I get it right. Within lots of surveys now, including the participation survey, or the community and engagement, it's now called survey, we get these standard questions that were first measured in 2015. No, it was a bit before then. It was about Cameron and the whole kind of happiness index thing, which some of you may remember. These were 4 questions that came out from the ONS that have been used for 2 decades now plus, that help track well-being. and you are asked 4 things, and on a scale from 0 for not at all to 10 completely. The first one, life satisfaction. Overall, how satisfied are you with your life nowadays? So you then score that between 0 and 10. Have a go. I'm not going to ask for your answers. But that's what you're asked within the survey. And then what we've got here is the mean of that. First of all, for England. And if you have attended theatre in the last 12 months, you are more likely to consider your life, to consider yourself to be satisfied with life. Average, if you haven't attended, 6.7. Average, if you have attended, 7.2. That's quite a big gap. Greater Lincolnshire, we see the same thing. 7.3 in terms of satisfaction for those who have attended theatre, 6.8 for those who haven't. Does that make sense? Really key within this, as you will see, because I repeat it many times in the reports, correlation is not causation. The fact that I go to the theatre does not make me happier, more satisfied, or anything else. All we are doing is saying, look, we can see that there is a link there, but why it happens, we do not know. We're not trying to prove anything from this. If you want some really good data around what the arts can do for you, Daisy Fancourt's new book, buy it, read it, give it to your friends. I'm going to go through the other 3 here. Worthwhileness. Overall, to what extent do you feel the things you do in your life are worthwhile? And again, we see that 0.5 gap, both in England and Greater Lincolnshire. And happiness. Overall, how happy did you feel yesterday? And again, we've got a 0.5 gap in England. Are you a bit less happy in Greater Lincolnshire? But there's a gap with all of these things. And then the one that you want to be low is the anxiety one. Overall, how anxious did you feel yesterday? Remember, 0 is not at all and 10 is completely. And we can see that, again, theatre, less anxious than those who haven't attended the theatre. This all make sense?
Sorry, could I just ask a question about that? So the correlation between satisfaction and attending theatre, how were those, because you said one question was about how satisfied you are and how worthwhile you are. The smashing together of those questions, who's attended theatre, who hasn't attended theatre, and how happy are you? Is it I've attended theatre once versus I regularly?
No, it's somebody who said on that first long list of questions. Yeah.
Okay, so
simple as that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As I said, you've got to be cautious with this. So this is visual arts participation, and this helps illustrate why you need to be cautious with this. You only get figures that look like this with visual arts. Everything else looks like the theatre figures. But in visual arts, it's reversed. If you've engaged in visual arts, you are less likely to feel satisfied, that your life is worthwhile, that you're happy, and you're more likely to feel anxious. Now, we're not suggesting that visual arts does that to you, but it could be that you're using visual arts as a coping mechanism in terms of dealing with those challenges in your life. So you need to be very careful with this. How are we doing? Oh, great. So that was the first kind of 2/3 of the reports. Dive in, you'll find stuff that's interesting and useful for you. You'll find loads of stuff that isn't. That's fine. We then get onto a section which is just got really simple stuff. around looking at different art forms and how you as a district or a unitary are doing compared to Greater Lincolnshire, compared to England as a whole. And you'll see that we've got an index figure there that's comparing you as a district or unitary with England. 100 would be exactly the same. Less than 100, you're indexing less. More than 100, you're indexing more. And we can see that for East Lindsey, which is our example here, in terms of overall arts attendance, it's 78%. We remember that from our early slides across England. It's just 72% in Greater Lincolnshire. And it's a bit less than that in East Lindsey. But again, looking at those margins of error, it's actually very similar in East Lindsey to Greater Lincolnshire. But we can see the differences across different art forms. Theatre attendance, for example, index of 73, way down on theatre compared to England. It goes on. There are basically 3 pages for each local authority within here. Key to flag, craft exhibition attendance in East Lindsey, way higher proportionally than the national average. Participating in crafts, again, substantially higher than the Greater Lincolnshire and the English average. And although it doesn't quite hit the English average, I was really heartened to see festivals there. Example of a local authority that has taken festivals very seriously for a long period of time now. Higher proportion of East Lindsey residents taking part in festivals than the Greater Lincolnshire average. And then you get another page which includes the used library service. Used library service, I think probably lots of people in the room know already that library usage in Lincolnshire, Greater Lincolnshire, is well below national averages. Heritage, actually you're pretty close to national average across Greater Lincolnshire. So we've got 15 minutes left. There are 10 key findings in the reports, which I hope will make sense, but I hope are the kind of key takeaways and things that you kind of remember from today. Overall, arts engagement in Greater Lincolnshire is below the England average. And that's true across attendance and participation virtually universally. Crafts is different, but everything else, generally, you're lower. But, and it's a really big but, when you drill down to a unitary or district level, things are very different. And you've got parts of Greater Lincolnshire that are performing above the national average and parts that are consistently performing below the national average. There is diversity within the area. In terms of specific art forms, that exhibition thing, which is attending exhibitions, is one of the prime ways of engaging with the arts. You are well down in Greater Lincolnshire, besides the City of Lincoln, compared to the rest of England. But crafts is your thing, very much so, particularly in terms of participation. And crafts is a great way of engaging with older adults. And in terms of some of your issues that you have with aging, this is something that's really worth focusing on. Younger people are likely to engage with visual arts, music, and film. Probably should have made that, stressed it further. There is a decline across some age groups, nationally and locally, as you get older. Disabled people, again, a lot of Greater Lincolnshire has high levels of self-reported disability. Interesting to see the figures here. in where we're seeing in terms of participation, we're seeing disabled people participate more in some areas. But in terms of attendance, we can really see that figures are well down, suggesting that there are still issues there in terms of giving decent access to all. In terms of sex, generally, women far more likely, that's probably overstating it, women are more likely to be engaging in arts and culture than men are. And that's different across different art forms. And that key thing, photography, for example, is something where we just don't see a sex divide at all, no gender difference. LGBTQIA plus engagement, almost universally higher than heterosexual engagement, and that's across music, visual arts, heritage, all sorts. As I mentioned in passing, libraries, big gap, big issue. And then the self-reported wellbeing one, we went through that in some detail. Got to be careful. Data is descriptive and do not demonstrate causation, but we can really see that there is a clear correlation between engagement with arts and culture nationally and within Greater Lincolnshire and more personal wellbeing.